Hello, and welcome to the 2019-2020 academic year. I'm Patty Dawson, Title IX Coordinator at Gustavus. Here at Gustavus, we are committed to cultivating an environment free of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and other sexually inappropriate conduct. It's our duty as an institution to respond promptly to any reports of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct, and to provide a fair and equitable process. Although this training may be a review for most of you, it is intended to assist you in your role as a mandated reporter. The training will cover what we as an institution need to do to comply with Title IX, but most importantly, it will assist you, a member of this community, in getting the reporting party to the right resources. In our current climate, there has been a lot of judicial activity related to Title IX. Institutions are being found responsible for failure to comply with Title IX provisions. As members of the community, we can work together to make sure we are responding in the appropriate way that is expected of us as an employee. The focus of the reporting process is to empower, protect, and provide support to the reporting party. Please keep in mind as we go through our days to model respectful behavior in the workplace and to say something if we see behavior that cultivates an environment of discrimination based on sex and gender. Together, we can work to keep Gustavus a community free from sex and gender discrimination. At the end of the presentation, you will need to complete an assessment of the information shared with you today. Throughout the training, Gus will be pointing out areas that you should remember. Once you complete and pass the assessment, you will receive a notice of completion. Please keep this for your records.
Hi, President Bergman here, reminding you that you are an important part of Gustavus compliance with Title IX. This is mandatory training for all of our employees that you must complete annually. And the reason that's important is because we put a high value on having a safe campus community for all of our employees and of course for our students as well. So thank you for participating and for taking this seriously because it is a serious matter. Your role as a mandatory reporter is important for you to understand and to know where you report to our Title IX coordinator if indeed you have reason to do so. And so pay attention. Pay attention because it's important for the safety of our campus community. Thank you very much.
No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Most of us are familiar with this statement of Title IX and the federal law. Title IX protects both students and employees. Gus thinks it's important for you to remember that. The Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 is a federal law intended to end sex discrimination in all areas of education. It applies to non-discrimination based on sex and gender to all recipients of federal funds, both at public and private institutions. It also applies to issues of program equity, such as in athletics, and also to sexual harassment and sexual assault. The U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, provides the guidelines for Title IX. Reports can be made to them at any time. Information on how to contact the Office of Civil Rights is located in our policy. Our obligations at Gustavus under Title IX. Once we have been put on notice, we must take prompt and effective action to investigate what occurred. We must stop the behavior, remedy the effects, prevent its reoccurrence. As employees of the college, it's important that we familiarize ourselves with the sexual harassment and sexual misconduct policy that protects the entire Gustavus community. This policy applies to all employees and students. Violations of other forms of harassment, such as harassment related to race or religion, are covered in the college's harassment policies and procedures, not in the sexual harassment and sexual misconduct policy. The policy can be found in the Title IX website. Please take time to familiarize yourself with the policy and procedure. Sexual misconduct offenses include, but are not limited to, sexual harassment, non-consensual sexual contact, non-consensual sexual intercourse, sexual exploitation, intimate partner violence, and stalking. Sexual harassment in the employment context is unwelcome, sex or gender-based, verbal, written, visual, or physical conduct that denigrates or shows hostility or aversion toward an individual because of that person's protected status, and that has the purpose or effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work academic environment, has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or otherwise adversely affects an individual's ability to perform their job. In the education context, sexual harassment of students can be a form of discrimination prohibited by Title IX. Sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that it interferes with, denies, or limits an individual's ability to participate in or benefit from educational programs and activities. Non-consensual sexual contact is any intentional sexual touching, however slight, with any object or body part by an individual upon another individual that is without consent and or by force or coercion. Non-consensual sexual intercourse is any sexual intercourse, however slight, with any object or body part by an individual upon another individual that is without consent and or by force. Sexual exploitation occurs when an individual takes non-consensual or abusive sexual advantage of another for that individual's own advantage or benefit, or to benefit or advantage anyone other than the individual being exploited, and that behavior does not otherwise constitute sexual assault. Intimate partner violence is sometimes referred to as dating or relationship violence. Intimate partner violence can vary in frequency and intensity and is defined as physical, sexual, or psychological harm by a current or former partner or spouse, including casual or serious romantic involvements. Stalking is engaging in a course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety or the safety of others, or to suffer substantial emotional distress. I would also like to review with you a couple of other definitions that apply to the policy. Consent is clear, knowing, and voluntary. Consent is active, not passive. Silence in and of itself cannot be interpreted as consent. Consent can be given by words or actions as long as those words or actions create clear and mutually understandable permission regarding willingness to engage in and the conditions of sexual activity. Consent to any one form of sexual activity cannot automatically imply consent to any other forms of sexual activity. Previous relationships or prior consent cannot imply consent to future sexual acts. Physical resistance is a clear demonstration of non-consent. The lack of physical resistance does not imply the individual consented to the sexual activity or event. In some instances, because of a person's power or authority or the perception thereof, one individual may not be able to give consent to a given sexual encounter. For example, one individual who supervises another may not be able to obtain consent in an intimate encounter because the other person fears they might lose their job or status if they object to some or all aspects of the encounter. Retaliation is intimidation, threats, harassment, and other adverse action threatened or taken against any individual because that individual asserted rights protected under Title IX or any individual cooperating, including the respondent or any witnesses, in the investigation or resolution of a complaint in any way. Retaliation is not tolerated in any form in the Title IX process. All of these definitions can be found in detail in the sexual harassment and sexual misconduct policy that can be found online.
In my role as the Title IX coordinator at Gustavus, it is my responsibility to be the point person for campus complaints related to our policy on sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. It's also my responsibility to have oversight and coordination of a prompt and equitable grievance procedure for all members of the Gustavus community. The Title IX office will have oversight of the policy, do annual reviews of the policy, and assurance of compliance under Title IX, along with other laws related to sexual harassment and sexual misconduct, such as the Violence Against Women Act and Minnesota state laws. Trainings, awareness, and prevention work also fall under the Office of Title IX.
Your role as a mandated reporter. Once the institution has been made aware of an incident, our responsibility to investigate begins.
Hi, my name is Anthony Bettendorf, and I am the Director of Residential Life here at Gustavus. We often see comments that students or employees make on social media sites. When you come across a comment on social media that references sex discrimination, sexual misconduct, or sexual harassment, it's important that you contact the Title IX coordinator as soon as possible so that you can discuss the content.
Once you are made aware of an incident, the college is now aware. All employees of the college are mandated reporters and are required to take action by immediately referring any potential alleged Title IX violations to the Title IX coordinator. Make your report directly to the Title IX coordinator. In an effort to protect the privacy of all involved, you only need to tell the Title IX coordinator.
Knowing the confidential resources is critical in getting the reporting party to the right resource. I am Kelly Miller, the team coordinator for Sexual Assault Response Team here at Gustavus.
Hi, I'm Julianne Watterson, one of the confidential advocates, and we are available to the campus community 24/7. Our focus is to empower and provide confidential support to members of our community who have experienced sexual misconduct or sexual harassment.
Hi, I'm Amy Pearson, one of the SART advocates, and we work in collaboration with the Committee Against Domestic Abuse, also known as CADA, which is an off-campus confidential community resource that supports victims of sexual misconduct and domestic violence.
Hi, I'm Jill Van Astel. I'm also a confidential advocate. It's important to remember that along with SART advocates, the Counseling Center, Health Services, and chaplains are also confidential resources.
Hi, I'm Margaret Bren. I am new to SART this year. SART members can be reached by calling 507-933-6868 or by finding one of us in our offices. Gus thinks it's important for you to know your confidential resources.
There are several ways to report, but limit the amount of people you tell to protect the privacy of all parties. Make sure your first report is to the Title IX coordinator. You can make a direct report to me, the Title IX coordinator, in person, by email, by phone call, and there is also an online option. To make a report online, go to the Gustavus website, go to the bottom of the page, and click on Title IX. It will take you to the Title IX webpage, where on the right-hand side you'll see a box. Click on that yellow Report Sexual Misconduct, and it'll take you to a form that is quite simple to fill out and will provide all the information the Title IX coordinator needs. Once you've completed that, your role as a mandated reporter is complete. Other information on the Title IX website may be useful to you as well. Take some time to cruise through the site to look at the policy, definitions, and other information that may be pertinent if you are assisting someone in the process. Campus safety officers are available if you need immediate assistance. There also is an anonymous reporting option for individuals. However, mandated reporters cannot submit an anonymous report. Gus thinks this is important information for you to remember.
My name is Charlie Potts, and I'm an Assistant Vice President for Student Life. When a student trusts you and asks you to keep the information they share confidential, it can be very difficult to have to betray that trust. Inform the student that you are a mandated reporter and that you are required to share the information with the Title IX coordinator. You can assure them that they are still in the driver's seat and will have options when they meet with the Title IX coordinator on how best to move forward. Getting the reporting party to the Title IX coordinator ensures that we are providing all of the information and resources to members of our community that have experienced sexual harassment, sex discrimination, or sexual misconduct. It is not our job as employees to decide if a violation has occurred. It is our job to get the information to the Title IX coordinator.
Hi, my name's Tori. I'm going to be a junior this upcoming year, so class of 2021. I'm a gusty greeter on campus. I'm involved with the rugby team. I'm also in a couple social justice orgs here on campus. If a student or employee shares with you that they have been a victim of sexual harassment, sex discrimination, or sexual misconduct, Here are some things you can do. Notify them that you are a mandated reporter. Listen without conveying judgment. Let them know that it is not their fault. Encourage them to use resources available to them on campus, including SART, the Counseling Center, the chaplains, and the Title IX office. Use the employee resource card that you receive in the campus mail as a guide. Thank them for trusting you and let them know that the Title IX coordinator will be in touch with them.
After a report is made to the Title IX coordinator, what happens? Well, first of all, you've done your job. Thanks. Great work. The Title IX coordinator will reach out to the reporting party. The reporting party has choices about how we proceed. If the reporting party chooses to remain confidential and does not wish to proceed with the formal investigation, the Title IX team will meet to discuss the confidentiality and whether or not the institution needs to move forward with a formal investigation. There's a process the team uses to make sure this is completed under Title IX compliance. Most of the time, the complainant's request is granted. If the reporting party wishes to move forward with a formal investigation, the Title IX coordinator will contact the investigator and begin the process of a formal investigation.
So I'm Carol Brewer. I'm the Director of Campus Safety, and often I'm asked why we don't report cases of sexual assault or cases of sexual misconduct directly to law enforcement to investigate. And whether the report is made to Campus Safety or a Title IX coordinator or a confidential employee or confidential resource, the option to report to law enforcement is always that of the victim. And in fact, there's a Minnesota law that requires us to leave that option to the victim. But certainly if a victim wants to report to law enforcement, we aid them in making that contact and will be present if they so choose when the law enforcement officer arrives. And so a investigation by law enforcement and an investigation by Title IX can both happen at the same time. And while sometimes Title IX may wait a couple days to start their investigation to allow law enforcement to initiate theirs, they certainly can run concurrently.
The process is private, not confidential, shared with others on a need-to-know basis. For example, the Academic Support Center may be contacted if we are assisting the individual with academic needs. Human Resources will be contacted if an employee is involved in the process. You can check in with the person that shared with you, but you will not hear back from the Title IX coordinator regarding the process of the investigation. The Title IX coordinator notifies both parties in writing that an investigation will begin. The respondent receives a letter when they meet with the Title IX coordinator that lays out the charges, and the complainant receives a copy of that letter. An investigator is assigned to the case. Gustavus uses an off-campus law firm that's trained in Title IX to perform the investigation. I like to refer to our investigator as a fact finder. They meet with our complainant, our respondent, any witnesses, and gather any pertinent evidence, and then create a report that is given to the Title IX coordinator. Title IX coordinator prepares that report for the Sexual Misconduct Board so that they can determine a finding. The decision is made by a trained board, 3-person board with at least 1 faculty member and 2 administrators. They use the preponderance of evidence as the standard used to make a finding. Gus thinks it's important that you remember this information. Sanctioning is also done by the board if the respondent is found in violation of policy. We do offer an appeal process. An appeal is a request. Guidelines for appeal can be found in detail in the policy.
I'm Julie Bartley. I'm a Deputy Title IX Coordinator here and a Professor of Geology. And faculty often ask whether they must make a report if a student shares something concerning in a class assignment. And each of these situations is unique, so what we encourage you to do is to think about the intent in which the information is shared, and maybe also to reach out and have a follow-up conversation with the Title IX coordinator. She can help you decide whether, in a hypothetical situation, whether a report is necessary and what the next steps are. And it might also be a good idea to follow up with the student themselves to offer confidential resources or Title IX resources.
How you can help. Prevention is key. Be familiar with the policy and what is expected of you. Part of our role as employees of this community is to keep us free from all forms of sex and gender harassment, discrimination, and misconduct.
Hello, my name is Jacob Larson, and I am a Residential Life Community Coordinator on campus. Sexual harassment, sex discrimination, and sexual misconduct happen. Most of us probably know someone that has been a victim of this in some way. All of us have an obligation to the community to ensure it is a safe and welcome place to learn and work. As students and employees of this community, we need to step in and intervene if we see something that isn't right. Bystander intervention seeks to shift responsibility for preventing sexual violence from victims and survivors to the broader community. Preventing sexual violence and challenging the social and cultural attitudes that condone and facilitate it is everybody's responsibility.
Hi, I'm Dale Plenum. I'm the Director of Environmental Health, Safety, and Risk Management. Along with our responsibility as a mandatory reporter under Title IX, there are state-specific laws that require us to report any form of child abuse. Under the state law, those who interact with minors or supervise those who interact with minors must report suspected or known abuse of a child or a vulnerable adult to the police as soon as possible, but no more than 24 hours of receiving the report. If you find yourself in a situation where you have been notified of abuse or questionable abuse of a minor or vulnerable adult, it is your responsibility to make the call to law enforcement. If you would like support in making the call or are unsure how to proceed, you should contact the Title IX office and we will assist you in making the required call in a prompt manner. You can find local law enforcement contact on your Title IX card.
If you have any questions regarding Title IX, please know you could always contact the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. This information is available in our policy. You can also contact me, the Title IX coordinator, as well as a member of the Title IX team, Tommy Valentini, Deputy Title IX coordinator, and also Julie Bartley, another Deputy Title IX coordinator. You will now be asked to complete that assessment that we discussed at the beginning of this training. If you have any questions regarding this, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you and have a great year.